In this video, we're going to answer the question, what is Chapter 13 bankruptcy and how does it work? So stay tuned, bankruptcy bailout buddies. Welcome, borrowers and debtors, to Bankruptcy Bailout, because debt ruins lives, not bankruptcy. My name is Matt Burkus, Colorado bankruptcy and debt relief attorney, and today we're going to cover a bankruptcy basics question. What is Chapter 13 bankruptcy? So let's get into it. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a monthly payment plan to pay back a portion of your debt. The best way to think about it, although I hate this comparison, is Chapter 13 is like debt consolidation. Because what you're doing in Chapter 13 is you're taking all your debts, putting it into a basket, what we call the estate, and then you're going to make one monthly payment to pay back all, or most importantly, a portion of that debt. That is what Chapter 13 allows you to do. The difference between Chapter 13 and debt consolidation is that in Chapter 13, you're not required to pay back your debt in full. You only have to pay back what you can afford to pay back. Whereas debt consolidation requires you to pay back your debt in full, but it simply restructures, or usually restructures, the interest rate. So for Chapter 13 bankruptcy, think of it like this, that you're telling your creditors, hey, look, I can no longer afford to pay you what you want, but I can afford to pay something. And therefore, that's what Chapter 13 allows you to do, is to pay back that disposable income that you actually have. So how Chapter 13 works is basically you take your income, less your necessary living expenses, and whatever that number is, that's what you're going to pay for 36 to 60 months. The typical time for a Chapter 13, or the typical length of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, is 60 months or 5 years. All right, so when you work with your bankruptcy attorney, most of the time is going to be spent figuring out what your monthly payment is going to be or should be. Because even though it's sort of this simple idea of income minus expenses, obviously the bankruptcy court is not going to allow just any expense to count. All right, so the idea is you're going to have your income minus what we call allowed expenses that are reasonable and necessary for your living expenses, and then you pay whatever's left over. Now, the beauty of Chapter 13 is that number gets fixed up front. So it doesn't fluctuate, although you do have an ongoing reporting requirement sometimes. Generally speaking, you're going to propose a plan at the beginning of the case that says, hey, look, I'm going to pay $500 a month, and that number gets approved, and then your number is going to be $500 a month for 5 years, unless something changes in your circumstances dramatically. All right. Now, the other thing about Chapter 13 is that it can allow you to do things that you can't do in other chapters of bankruptcy, namely Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So one of the primary uses of Chapter 13 bankruptcy is to save your house from foreclosure. Because again, you get to take all your debt and roll it into one monthly payment. So what Chapter 13 allows you to do is take your missed mortgage payments, put them into that basket of debt, and then pay it off over 60 months. And the only caveat being is you just have to be able to start making the regular mortgage payment again. And you can do that with other debts as well. If you're behind on your car payments, if you're behind on your child support, if you're behind on your taxes, Chapter 13 gives you a mechanism to force that creditor into a payment plan, into that 60-month payment plan that you can pay. So there you have it. That's Chapter 13 bankruptcy in a nutshell, and the beauty of it is you get to pay back what you can afford to pay back, and if you can't afford to pay back all your debts, which is perfectly okay in Chapter 13, for most debts anyway, the remaining balances get discharged and eliminated. So I hope you found this video helpful. Again, my name is Matt Burkus. I'm a Colorado bankruptcy and debt relief attorney that's been doing this for 18 years. Best of luck to you.